rush getting down here. I live in San Francisco. There was a bunch of traffic, and I didn't really get a chance to eat breakfast. So if it's cool with you guys, I'm just going to light this thing up. I've got some oatmeal in there, and I'm going to let it go while I give a talk. Is that all right? Cool? Okay. Does anybody have a lighter? You guys are in high school. You probably can't have lighters. That's fine. Yeah, I brought one. Let's see here. All right. We're good. Einstein once said, if you had an hour to solve a problem, you should spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about solutions. I'll say that again, 55 minutes on the problem and 5 minutes on the solution. Here's a problem I've been thinking a lot about, smoke. Smoke from indoor cooking fires, campfires indoors, kills 4.3 million people every single year. That's 4 times San Francisco every single year. And the smoke from that stuff, this stuff, little particles from that smoke, they get stuck in your lungs, and they cause all sorts of nasty problems. Pneumonia, lung cancer, stroke, COPD, heart disease, among others. So it's a huge problem. And until recently, just a couple of years ago, I heard about this problem. And I was shocked when I saw the numbers that I hadn't heard about it before. So let's see about you guys. Raise your hand if you knew this is a big public health issue. Raise your hand. I see like a couple hands, hard to see. Okay, cool. Now, raise your hand if you've heard of AIDS. Raise your hand. Most of you guys, yeah? All right. What about malaria? Yeah? A lot of hands? All right, cool. Smoke from indoor cooking fires kills more people than AIDS and malaria combined. This is Zamzam. It's a refugee camp in North Darfur. This is where I've been working on solving this problem. So since 2003, 11 years, Darfur has been engulfed in a civil war. And that's caused not just hundreds, not just thousands, it's caused millions of people to be displaced from their homes. And a lot of them, they end up here. About 250,000 people live here in Zamzam. And the women here, and it's typically women, they cook over an open fire. And that practice of preparing their meals over an open fire is making them sick, it's making their kids sick, and it's making their husbands and their families sick. So in order to get the wood to cook, the women in Darfur, they either buy it from local sellers or small markets that pop up in the camps, or they leave the camps. They leave the camps and they leave the safe zone, and they go back out into where the war is being waged in order to collect wood. It's not uncommon for a woman to leave her home and to spend 4, 5, 6 hours every day, that's half of your day, to collect wood with which to cook. When I think about this problem, and it's so core, right? It's about food, it's about sustenance. I think about my favorite food. And this is it, mac and cheese. Raise your hand if you like mac and cheese. I think that's a lot of you guys, hard to see. I really like mac and cheese. So, who's cooked mac and cheese? Okay, cool. So you know, you boil the pasta, whatever, you strain it, and then you take the orange cheese packet, you put it in, right? You have to stir it so that the clumps turn into cheese somehow, this magic chemical equation that happens. Right, so that you have to stand over the fire, or not the fire, right? We cook over stoves in our homes. You have to stand over the stove, you gotta stir that thing, just for a few minutes. That very act of preparing food to sustain us, that very act is killing people all over the world. Around the world, 3 billion people, that's almost half of the global population, they cook over open fires like this. So let's think about these guys. How many of these, how many cigarettes do you think cooking 3 meals over an open fire indoors is equivalent to smoking every single day? Just yell out some numbers. Is it 1? Is it more than that?
A pack.
10. Okay, it's more than 10.
20.
More than 20.
35.
More than 35.
2 million.
Less than 2 million, thankfully. All right, cooking 3 meals a day over an 200 cigarettes every single day. When we thought about how we would solve this problem, we went back to our quote, 55 minutes. So we know that the problem is smoke. But in Darfur, we wanted to understand, what are the other drivers of it? Is it the way that people are preparing their food? Is it the food that they're eating? Are there other factors that are contributing to people continuing to cook over a fire, even though that very act is making them sick? So we sent a team of scientists to Darfur, and we went to hang out with them. We hung out with the women who cook over the open fires. We made tea with them, we cooked meals with them. We left the camps to gather wood with them. We went to their weddings, we went to a lot of weddings, a lot of funerals. And really what we wanted to do is we wanted to spend our 55 minutes deeply, deeply understanding the problem. With respect to fuel, this is what we found. This is a woman in Darfur in Zamzam. So indeed, they cook with wood. We wanted to understand if there were other fuels available. Is there gas? Electricity? Could we substitute out something besides wood so that people didn't have to breathe the smoke from burning it? What we found, because we're working in such a resource-poor area, is that it was actually quite difficult to find any other fuels. Wood is the predominant fuel in Sudan, and particularly in Darfur. But what we also found that was really interesting is that people actually like cooking over wood for a number of reasons. It makes their food taste good. You know that smoky taste when you go and you have a barbecue or you have a campfire? That's the taste that they eat pretty much every day. It's something they've been doing for generations. Generation after generation, everybody learns how to cook over wood. And so people know how to control the heat. People know how to feed the flame, and they know how to make their own dishes by controlling the heat that they're cooking with. These are the pots that people use in Darfur. This is actually one of them right here. There's 4 pot sizes in Darfur, and a typical family will use pot sizes 1, 2, and 3. And that's pretty much it. Everything that people eat there can be cooked on one of these pots. And this is a blank slide. But this had a picture of a sita, which is sort of the typical dish. It's a mush, carbohydrate mush, with some really amazing sauce on top. We brought all this information, we brought all these learnings from hanging out with the women in Darfur, and we came back to Berkeley. We came back to Lawrence Berkeley National Labs. What we wanted to do is we wanted to find a solution that used locally available materials. We knew we had to find a solution to reduce smoke that still enabled women to cook with wood. There was simply no alternative. We needed a solution that was cheap, because people have very little money. And we needed a solution that people would like, and that fit their needs, and that fit those pots and allowed them to cook what you didn't see on the blank screen. And after spending our 55 minutes really focused on this problem, when we came up with the solution, it was actually fairly simple. This is it. This is our stove. We call this the Berkeley Darfur stove. It weighs about 10 pounds. It's made of steel, has a cast iron grate, and you feed the wood in that mouth right there. This stove is designed to combust more efficiently, and it reduces the amount of smoke, still from cooking with wood, by 50%. So we go from 200 cigarettes to 100 cigarettes, which is good, right? But we're still dealing with 100 cigarettes. We're working on prototypes now in the lab that are getting us to reductions of 80 and 90%. I was there yesterday playing with some of them, and it's really exciting stuff. So it's important that we make something that solves the problem, but we don't solve the problem unless people use the stoves, unless people really love cooking over them. This is Halima. She's a woman in North Darfur. She lives not far from Zamzam camp. Halima, on average, uses our stove about 1.5 hours a day. So that's 1.5 hours that we know she's using less smoke. She's being exposed to less smoke. The stove cooks twice as fast as over a fire, so she's saving time. And if she bought wood before, she's saving money. And if she didn't buy wood before, she has to leave that camp and do that 4, 5, 6 hour walk much less frequently. If we had an equation to define the work we do, it would be this. Usage equals impact. When Halima uses our stove, we know that we improve her life in some way, tangibly. I was in Sudan last month, and we asked a group of women to describe our stove in one word. And the word they come up with is murtaha. It's Arabic. It doesn't have a direct translation, but roughly it translates to something that's better, something that's comfortable, something that's tangibly makes life a little easier. So that's what we do. There's 37,000 women in Darfur like Halima. And with an average household size of 6, people typically have between 4 or 5 kids. We're improving the lives of about 250,000 people. Here's a little bit about our growth. We'll double that number in the next 2 years. So because of this work, and because of the focus on simplicity and affordability, just last week, our lead scientist and chairman of the board was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame. And we're super excited about that. There was a picture up here of him in DC accepting the award. So he didn't invent an element. He didn't do anything that sort of broadly advanced the field of science. But what we did, is we combined science with humanity to get to something that has an impact. Going back to our equation of usage equals impact, we really wanted to understand, are people actually using our stoves? So what we did, can you click play?
Oh yeah.
Thank you. So what we did is we installed heat sensors.
Sorry, my bad. Whoa.
It's all good. If you scroll up,
Oh,
there you
yeah.
go. So what we did is we installed heat sensors on the stove. Their little buttons are about this big, and we put them on the inside of the stove. And they enable us to see when people are using the stoves and when they aren't. And so what you're going to see is a visualization, if we can get it to work. QuickTime not available. Oh, bummer. All right, I'll tell you about it.
Sorry.
So that's cool. So last summer we did this, and what you were going to see is a visualization of a bunch of different camps, about 200 stoves. And from here in Berkeley, we were able to see when those stoves were lighting up and when they were dormant. And that's how we started to understand what are some of the behaviors that are associated with our technology. And as time went on, we would see more and more lights as people told their friends, hey, this thing works, this thing doesn't. So we got some really good information about this. But there were also some little circles that represented the stoves that weren't being lit up. There were some people that weren't converting to a user, to someone that cared and used about the stove. So we wanted to understand what's up with those guys. So here's what we did. This represents sort of how we try to understand non-user behavior. So that horizontal line there, that's time. That's number of days. And the vertical line is hours that people use our stove. That dotted line in the middle, we figured, all right, for the folks that aren't using our stove, let's go and visit them and let's just simply ask, what's up? Why aren't you using it? Do you like it? Do you not like it? How can we improve so that you'll actually convert to a user, right? Fairly simple stuff. This green line along the bottom, those were our non-users. So starting at the bottom left, right, you have people who basically used our stove for 0 hours every day. What's so interesting is we told them that we were going to come, and about 2 days before we saw courtesy spike. They're like, oh gosh, those guys are going to come, they're going to talk to us, so they figured, oh shoot, we should light it up and we should see if we like it or whatever. So if it's a courtesy spike, we would imagine that the spike would drop off afterwards, right? It's like, hey, we want to please you. It's like when your parents tell you to eat Brussels sprouts or something, and you like take a bite and you're like, I did it, Mom, right? So we thought that it would drop off. But what's so interesting about this is, in fact, after we saw that spike in usage, we saw non-users actually convert to users. So once they got out of the hump of actually lighting up the stove, they actually saw the benefits of it, and then they continued to use it at the levels of those that we already knew were converts. So this is really interesting information for us. It helps us to understand how we combine not just the technology, but also how we understand the human dynamics of how people interact with our technology in order to get to more impact. So there's the Hall of Fame picture I was going to show you guys. This is our lead scientist and co-founder, Dr. Ashok Gadgil. So this is in DC just last week. I want to switch now to talking about all of you. You can't all be inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I certainly haven't been. I don't know if I fooled you or not, but I'm actually not a scientist, and I'm certainly not from Darfur. So my own path to this work, that's me, was circuitous, like I imagine all of the paths that you'll take will be. For me, prior to this work, so I run an organization called Potential Energy. And we are responsible for getting these stoves into the hands of people who will use them in order to improve their lives. Prior to this work, I spent 7 years with Kiva. It's a microfinance organization that connects people to facilitate the flow of resources around the world. When I started at Kiva, we were 5 volunteers, and when I left last year, we raised $500 million in tiny little increments of 25 bucks. So it was a great journey, and in that journey, I had the great privilege of getting to travel all around the world. So I've lived and worked in 50 countries, and hung out with Kiva clients all over the world. And so many times I would spend time with women hanging out while they're cooking, while they're eating, and I got pretty sick of leaving smoky kitchens and having my eyes burning and coughing simply from a day of just hanging out with people who were the recipients of our lungs. So I had lived this problem, tiny little sliver of it, and I could not imagine what it would be like to live that day in and day out for 3 meals a day. When I heard about potential energy, I saw potential to take the stove that we had in Berkeley and down Darfur and to bring it to other places. As we talked about in the beginning of this conversation, we're talking about 3 billion people that are cooking over an open fire, and there are solutions to make it better. So I love growth, I love scale, and I was inspired to join the team. I lead the team now, to see if we can't bring this thing all over the world, including Alaska. So that's me. If I had an equation to define the work that I'm doing with potential energy, it would be this. So we know there's a problem, and then we try to understand the problem even more, right? You can't just spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes on the problem. You got to spend like 50, 55. And then we come in, and we bridge between the technology and the humanity of the work that we're trying to do. So these 3 things for us at Potential Energy and for me, they lead to more and deeper impact. So as you think about your own lives, I challenge you to think about a problem that you see, that you live every single day in your own life. And it doesn't matter if it's big or small, right? My first problem this morning was, what do I wear, right? Problem solved, I got here wearing clothes. Everybody deals with problems every single day. And I challenge you to think about what your own impact equation could be. How could you take a problem that you might understand and see if you could understand it more deeply, and more deeply again? With respect to smoke, with respect to indoor air pollution, you've been listening to me for like 15 minutes now. You're already a quarter of the way there in terms of allocating your hour to understanding this problem and to solving it. So I guess congratulations. So think about this. And as you think about a problem that you want to tackle, I'd ask you to keep this in the back of your mind. How are you spending your hour? That 55 minutes, it worked for us. It worked for Einstein. And I'm confident that it will work for you guys as well.